Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Happy Birthday. I was a bookkeeper for a company that celebrated employee birthdays once a month. It was the receptionist's job to get the cake and ice cream into the break room for the monthly celebrations. We went through a lot of receptionists. Most of them deserved to be terminated, but one of them was at the top of her game and the best one I'd worked with in years. She was fired the day before the monthly birthday party. I was upset that she was gone. Not only was she efficient, she had a hilarious sense of humor that kept everyone laughing and happy. I was even more upset that I had to stop working on a report to hop in my car and get a birthday cake for some stupid birthday celebration. When I got to the store, I requested customizing writing on the cake. The look on the owners' faces was worth it when they opened the box before they put candles on the cake. Happy birthday, witches! I was excused from getting any further celebratory cakes. The next story is called Automated. In my first job, I worked in IT as an access and permissions administrator at a large company with significant technological debt. The environment included custom software dating back to the Windows 90s and even DOS era. Initially, the work was quite tedious, involving a lot of back and forth communication between multiple departments. We had to ensure that each employee had the necessary training and documentation to access data in the scope requested by their manager. Additionally, we needed approval from the manager of the department related to the system role in question. On top of that, the company's excessive paper-only bureaucratic workflow made the work go at a snail's pace. A single SAP account for a blue-collar worker required at least 3 forms signed by different people. The heads of departments responsible for signing those papers didn't feel any urgency to send them to us quickly. A good example of this is when I, myself, waited over 2 weeks after being hired in the IT department before my first account was set up. Until then, I only had a guest account that allowed me to access the main internal website with the company's procedures, regulations, and other basic information. Up to this point, each signed form had to be physically delivered to us, which was agonizingly slow, given that the company had multiple branches. We decided to automate away the paperwork. Our first step was to allow the use of scanned documents. It was a partial success. While it eliminated the courier delays, management still required us to sign the physical copies afterward, which we mass stamped at the end of each month. The next step was to introduce a fully electronic workflow. We faced significant resistance from upper management, so we had to settle on a system that mostly replicated the existing paper processes. Despite this, it was a game changer. We created presets that managers could select and customize as needed, using data from these customizations to create better fitting presets. We also developed workflows that automatically generated and assigned subtickets for necessary approvals and tracked how long it took, sending reminders if needed. And finally, we got an approval from HR to access layoff data to generate user block and removal tickets. Sometime after we rolled out the new system, the HR and payroll manager made a big fuss. She was furious that her team was still waiting weeks to get their permissions and questioned whether all our work had been for nothing. That really struck a chord with me. Inside, I was overjoyed, but I did my best to keep a neutral expression. At that time, we were working on summary reports with burn down and bottleneck charts, and I already knew that tickets requesting HR and payroll access were spending most of their lifespan waiting for her or one of her sub-managers to approve them. The manager immediately went on the defensive, claiming she couldn't keep up with the amount of tickets. She then requested a change. She wanted any request from her employee to be automatically approved within the relevant scope of their sub-department. For example, a request for an HR worker to have full HR access and limited payroll access would be automatically approved for HR access, but not for payroll, and vice versa. I was skeptical, but wasn't exactly in a position to argue. I asked my boss to join the discussion and explained that the goal was to prevent overly permissive approvals that could lead to unauthorized access. I tried to convince her to brainstorm together potential edge cases before making a blanket approval, but she was already set on her decision and wasn't interested in discussing details. My boss shrugged and said it would be her responsibility. He told her to write up an official document outlining the change, and we would proceed with the implementation. The only request we had was to include a line that each such request would still be created, assigned to as normal, and marked as automatically approved by manager decision. I uploaded the scan into our system and, anticipating that it would eventually backfire, made a photocopy to keep it handy in the top drawer of my desk. The original copy went to the archive. A few weeks later, she stormed into our room. The speed with which she flung open the door made it clear she was furious. She demanded to know why we had granted full access to payroll data to her subordinate. I think it was the only time I ever heard anyone yell in the company. I calmly reminded her of her request to automatically approve in-department access requests. She wasn't having it, explaining that one of her low-ranking subordinates from the payroll sub-department had access to salaries of everyone in their department, including managers, and was unhappy with the paycheck disparity. Isn't it obvious that they shouldn't be able to do that to a human? But that decision was automated away by your request. I handed her a copy of the document she had signed, which instructed us to automatically approve any and all such tickets without exception. Immediately afterward, she asked us to roll back the change, while she wrote up another document to cancel the previous one. In the following days, she meticulously reviewed all those tickets and requested us to reduce access for several users. I have to admit, she did a thorough job and kept up a good pace in reviewing new requests, doing it daily instead of once every week or two as before. In the end, we managed to distill a subset of permissions that could be approved automatically and proceeded to implement a similar approach with other departments. I don't know whether that payroll employee managed to get the raise, but I'm sure they weren't fired, as we didn't receive any tickets to block or remove any accounts from that department in the following months. The last story is called Follow the Process. Before I became a manager at another location, I worked in a store, and we had a mechanic who had done something which was stupid and against the rules, but it turned into being blown out of all proportion. He was out on a road test in a customer's car after finishing some work, and he stopped off in our shop to buy something. It was against the rules to use a customer's car for personal use, even on a road test. His manager was fairly new to the role, and the mechanic knew he was going to be in trouble, but did not think it would be a big deal. As in the past, it would most likely be a telling off as a verbal warning, or possibly a written warning. This mechanic was very good and very productive and made them lots of money, so they could not afford to get rid of him. However, the new manager decided that he would go all official and hold a full disciplinary meeting. The mechanic asked me if I would act as someone to go in with him, to take notes, etc., which was allowed. Beforehand though, I did try and speak to the manager and suggest this could all be dealt with. However, he said he was following the process and expected everyone to do the same. I then spoke to the mechanic and got the background and what had gone on in the investigation meeting beforehand, which I realized had been mishandled also. The next day, there was an office with 2 people from HR who had traveled a long way to this meeting. I said to the mechanic, just go along with it as I indicate. The HR people and the manager are there, and so are both of us. And the manager starts to go off about what had happened, and that he had been seen by the customer, stopping off to buy a drink in the local shop. He then went on about rules and procedures, and this went on and on. At the end of it, I asked if we could take a break for a bit, which they agreed to, and then we went back, and to make the point, he decided to bring in another mechanic to confirm they knew the policy, which he said he did. I said that I could not be sure that everyone did, so one by one, They brought each mechanic up and asked them, and also started on, did they know what the accused had done, etc. Fully smug at what the manager had proved, I again asked for a break, as this had been going on for some time. Of course HR agreed, and I made them wait a good 20 minutes before we went back. At this point, one of the HR people was getting frustrated at the amount of time this was taking, and then asked the mechanic, what do you have to say for yourself? You did know the rules, and you did stop off? Yes, said the mechanic. I know it was wrong, and I am sorry for breaking the rules. The HR person looked stunned and said, so why did you say you did not? I never did, said the mechanic. At no point did he ask me if I had done it, only that he had to follow the process. At which point the second HR person said, no one asked you what you had to say about it? No, he did not, the mechanic answered. At that point, they did not look very pleased. I was trying hard not to laugh at it all and looked down at my notes so they could not see my face. The HR person said that a verbal warning would go on the file, not to do it again, and we could leave the room. And they thanked me for taking part. We all got up to leave, but they said to the manager to stay behind, and I closed the door and listened while I could hear them, giving the manager a hard time over the waste of time. The next day, when the manager ran off the productivity report, it was really bad because of the time lost by the other mechanics, while they gave their evidence. I would have loved to see him have to explain that one to his bosses. He avoided HR where possible after that and never asked me to follow the process again. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.